Hey everybody, and welcome back to Bookkast. Paul here.
Hey everyone, Sarah with you today for a new deep dive.
Yep, Bookkast. Bestsellers in minutes, you know how it is.
Because who really has the time to get through every single bestseller that hits the shelves these days?
Not me. I can barely keep up with my to-read pile as is. But luckily for you, that's where we come in. We read them, we break them down, and we give you the need-to-know in, well, minutes.
Today's selection is an interesting one. Emily Henry's People We Meet on Vacation. This one's been on the bestseller list for quite a while, and we got a ton of requests from you, our listeners, to do a deep dive on it.
So what's the deal with People We Meet on Vacation? Why is it resonating so strongly with readers?
Well, let's see what the experts have to say. Abby Jimenez, she's a USA Today best-selling author herself, and she called the book compulsively readable, praised its sparkling wit, and said the romance grabbed me by the heart.
Oh wow, that's a pretty glowing review.
It is, right? And the New York Times Book Review went even further, calling Emily Henry a star and saying that People We Meet on Vacation is a romance that rom-com fans will swoon over. That's high praise from some pretty reputable sources.
Yeah, definitely piques my interest. So what's the plan for today's deep dive? What should our listeners be ready for?
Well, we're diving into the heart of what makes this friends to lovers story tick. Why is it so captivating? What makes it work so well? We're going to be looking closely at Poppy and Alex, the main characters, and exploring their dynamic. Plus, we'll be teasing out some of the key themes that drive the narrative. And of course, we'll be looking at specific moments, some excerpts that really illustrate their personalities, their history together, and those all-important conflicts. You know, the good stuff.
Sounds like a plan. So let's jump right in, shall we?
Right from the start, we get Poppy's perspective on vacations. She talks about how vacations let you connect with strangers without that fear of lasting awkwardness you might feel back in the real world. It's almost like you can be a different version of yourself on vacation. This idea of temporary escape and the freedom it offers, it really sets the stage, doesn't it?
It does. And I think it's important to remember that the vacation setting is more than just a backdrop in this story. It really is like another character. It provides this unique space, a sort of temporary bubble where Poppy and Alex's relationship can evolve and grow without the usual pressures and expectations they face back home. There's a sense of possibility, a kind of freedom that comes with being away, like maybe the rules are a little different when you're on vacation. I think that's a great point. And then we get this really vivid description of one of their vacation moments in this sticky floored bar called Only BRR. Poppy, who's 25, describes Alex, also 25, as this tall, sandy-haired guy hunched over his phone. But then there's this detail. He's facing the bar, but his legs are angled toward her, like he's keeping some secret door to himself open just for me. It's such a small thing, but it feels so loaded with meaning.
It is, isn't it? Even in this kind of dingy bar, Poppy's focus is on this subtle intimacy with Alex. It hints at this deep connection that exists beneath the surface. And then she talks about how there's the public Alex, the reserved, never quite fully smiling Alex Nilsson that the rest of the world gets, and then there's the private Alex, a path straight to the weirdo, as she puts it. It really emphasizes that special bond they share, and it makes you wonder if that private connection will ever become something more, something out in the open.
And then later, when they're in the car, Alex mentions they didn't take any pictures at the bar for Poppy's blog. Poppy dismisses it, saying her readers wouldn't be interested, but then they had this exchange about remembering the trip, how it really was, and looking like ourselves. Yeah. It's a tiny moment, but it feels important in terms of how genuine they are with each other.
It's huge. In a world obsessed with capturing and sharing everything, their comfort in just being themselves without needing to document it for an audience speaks volumes. It really makes you think about the value of those unfiltered, unstaged moments of connection in your own life.
It does. And speaking of history, let's go back to the beginning. We find out they first met at the University of Chicago orientation. Poppy's first impression was that Alex didn't fit the kind of artsy, intellectual crowd she thought she'd be hanging out with. So it's interesting that their connection wasn't based on those kind of immediate surface-level similarities.
You know, that difference is often what makes relationships and stories so compelling. It forces the characters and us as readers to look beyond those initial assumptions and appreciate the individual qualities that make each person unique. And in this case, the fact that they were both kind of alone in this new environment probably created an instant sense of camaraderie.
Yeah, I can see that. And then we get these glimpses into their early friendship through these really charming anecdotes, like the time Poppy called Alex from the bathroom and he just stayed on the phone with her, or their tradition of going to different movies at the same theater just to play this shark jumping game. These little moments really paint a picture of their dynamic,
Absolutely. It wasn't built on grand romantic gestures, but on these shared experiences, these inside jokes, this comfort level that allows for some, well, let's say unconventional behavior. It's that kind of foundation that I think resonates with readers because it feels so real and relatable.
And then later on, Poppy has this thought in the car. Alex is not who I thought, I guess. It's such a simple line, but it speaks to this ongoing process of discovery, and maybe even a hint of those deeper feelings starting to emerge and change her perception of him.
Oh, that's a classic moment in a friends to lovers story. As they spend more time together, those initial assumptions start to fade, and they see each other in a new light. It's that shift that often hooks readers, that sense of, oh, there might be something more here than I initially thought.
For sure. And we also get to see a bit of Poppy's professional life as a travel writer for Rest Plus Relaxation magazine. There's this conversation she has with her friend Rachel about how the kind of picture-perfect, expensive vacations she writes about can feel so disconnected from the reality most people face. It's interesting to see Poppy questioning the whole escapism thing.
It adds this layer of depth to her character, right? She's not just this carefree, vacation-obsessed person. She's thinking critically about the industry she's a part of. And this conflict she feels between the idyllic and the real, it might be mirroring her own feelings about her relationship with Alex.
Oh, interesting. Will they have just this comfortable friendship, or could it be something more?
Exactly. It's a really smart way to connect those different aspects of her life.
And then there's that moment where Poppy accidentally texts Alex, "I miss you so much it hurts," and his response, just, "Hey." Talk about awkward. It really highlights the unspoken tension, those maybe feelings that have been simmering beneath the surface.
Oh, that's so relatable, isn't it? That accidental reveal of deeper emotions and then that wave of uncertainty that follows. What does hey even mean in that context? Is he acknowledging it, ignoring it? It leaves Poppy and us as readers hanging.
I know, I was cringing reading that. But it's so well done. And then we hear about this past trip they took to Vancouver Island. It rained constantly, and things didn't go as planned. But Poppy has this thought. This speaks to me. It's not about the perfect scenery or the ideal vacation. It's about being with Alex, regardless of the circumstances.
That's a powerful moment. It shows that what truly matters to Poppy is that connection with Alex. It's about finding that sense of home with another person, even when everything else is kind of a mess.
Totally. And it's not all serious introspection, right?
Yes.
There are some genuinely funny moments in this book, like when they're in a fetish shop playing their "Does This Speak to You" game.
Oh yeah, those moments of humor are so important. They show that playful dynamic, that comfort level they have with each other. It's endearing, and it keeps the story from getting too bogged down in all the emotional stuff.
For sure. And then later on, during a trip to Palm Springs for Alex's brother's wedding, the tension really ramps up. There are all these unresolved feelings in this sense that something's got to give.
Ugh, the wedding setting. A classic catalyst in romance stories. It often forces characters to confront their own desires, especially when they're surrounded by all this talk of love and commitment.
Right. And then there's the added complication of Sarah, Alex's on-again, off-again girlfriend. Poppy clearly has some history with her, and it creates this whole other layer of tension.
Definitely. Sarah's presence introduces this external conflict and raises the stakes for Poppy and Alex. There's a sense of urgency, like if they don't act on their feelings now, they might miss their chance.
So looking back at all these moments from people we meet on vacation, what we see is this long-standing friendship built on shared history, inside jokes, comfortable silences, and all those unspoken feelings. And it seems like the vacation settings really amplify everything, pushing them outside their comfort zones and forcing them to confront what's really going on between them.
Exactly, and I think that's what makes this book such a compelling read. It's about that slow burn, that evolution from friends to something more. So for you, the learner, our deep dive into Emily Henry's People We Meet on Vacation has hopefully given you some insight into why this book has resonated with so many readers. It's a great example of the friends to lovers trope, but it's also about those universal desires for genuine connection and finding a sense of belonging.
You know, it's clear why this book has been such a hit. It's funny, it's heartwarming, and it makes you think about your own relationships and what you're looking for. If you're a fan of rom-coms, or even if you just enjoy a well-told story about human connection, I highly recommend checking out the full book.
We always love to hear from you, our listeners. Let us know what resonated with you from this deep dive, what other questions you have about the book, and what other bestsellers you'd like us to cover in future episodes.
Thanks for joining us for another edition of Bookkast, Bestsellers in Minutes. We hope we've given you a shortcut to understanding this beloved bestseller.
Until next time, happy reading.